will just start from there. Our friends will join us as and when they're able. So, welcome to today's webinar on effective communication skills. I'm very happy to have you here this morning. My name is Purity Wanjiru. I'll help take through this training for this morning. The way we've structured the training is we'll start with a presentation that will take about 45 minutes, and then we'll have a Q&A at the end for another 15 minutes. But as we proceed with our conversation this morning, feel free to interject anywhere if you have a question. We have a team manning the inbox or the chat box, so feel free to continue to engage us even as we proceed. So what is so the purpose of even why we decided to have this series? We're getting a lot of feedback, especially from our corporate clients. There are small skills the employees are lacking. So they wanted us to see how we can support them. And being not a busy time of the year, so we thought, why not have a series around different skills, especially at the workplace, and then try and support as many employees as possible. So this is the purpose. So this series will run for the whole of this quarter. So every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Let's meet here, talk about different topics, see how we can make 2025 even better and greater. So straight on to the topic for today. So these are our training goals and objectives. So we hope by the end of this training for effective communication skills, we'll enhance collaboration by aligning goals and expectations, because you'll find like there's a lot of, whenever we talk about communication, it's either goals have been set, they've not been met. So we'll talk about that. We'll also hope by the end of this training, we'll have known how to build trust within teams and across departments, and also reduce conflicts by minimizing misunderstandings, especially at our workplace. Uh, then we have a few statistics that I saw when I was researching on this topic. Some of these statistics are strong companies with strong communication practices see 47% higher total return to stakeholders. That is a research that was done by McKinsey. And then by SHRM is the Society of Human Resource Management. It said 86% of employees cite poor communication as a reason for workplace failures. So I think all of us have to blame or have some sort of leaning on communication on why some of our organization practices fail. So today we'll handle all these topics that we've prepared for you. So understanding the fundamentals of communication, building collaborative communication, conflict resolution through communication as well, effective non-verbal communication. This one is becoming very popular today. And then feedback and constructive conversations. If you are to get feedback, how do you even give it and even receive it? And then overcoming barriers to communication. So that is what we have prepared for you this morning. I'm happy to engage you as we continue even for this training. So we'll start with a quote by Tony Robbins that says, to effectively communicate, we must realize that we are all different in the way we perceive the world, and use this understanding as a guide to communicate to our communication with others. What does this mean? It means we are all unique, we are all different in our own way. And the way I'll perceive information, the way another person will perceive their information is pretty much different. So it is good to come with this mind perspective that we are different. Hence, also our communication should be different in its nature. All right. So we'll go straight. So there's a small photo around communication. So why do you think communication matters? Feel free to stop me whenever, uh, so that I know if we are on track or we are not. I'm happy to take any inputs as we continue. If not, we'll just proceed. So, why does communication matter? Communication matters because one way it's our way of engaging with the world. All right. So, and I had tried to define what is effective communication, because remember, communication is not just communication. This communication has to be effective. Effective, it means, or by saying communication is effective, the person you're communicating to or with able to understand, and you have a common uh, point of understanding. So that is effective communication. So it's not just exchanging information, sending emails, receiving text messages, but you need to have a common level of understanding. So by your communication and only if your communication is effective, then it means stakeholders, employees, managers, supervisors, they're able to align in the objectives. Then, with effective communication, you're also able to build trust in how you transact with these people, especially employees. Then there's the culture of collaboration and productivity. So we need to stop just communicate and start now to try to move towards effective communication. So what are some of the benefits of effective communication? So I think this one I can just leave it to you. What do you think are some of the benefits of effective communication? You can put it on the chat box. Let's hear from you. So, as you rate the benefits you think, I can just list them down, and these ones I had already mentioned earlier. So, it enhances collaboration by aligning goals and objectives. Remember, even before we communicate or even we talk or send out that email, there's the goal that you want this communication to reach or to achieve. Now that is the expectation back. So, for example, a practical example is like when you were sending out these invites for this webinar. So that was our goal, that people are able to see it, to see the adverts, to see the communication, and the expectation is, apart from you seeing, you're going to sign up for the class. And once you sign up, you're also going to show up for the class. So you see, that is a goal with expectation. So imagine had we done all that effort and then this morning no one shows up for this training. It means our communication goal did not meet the expectation that we expected. And then the other one is building trust within teams and across departments. Remember, we are our own words. What we say, how we say it, and also how it is received by the other party is able to build trust. And trust revolves around consistency. You have to be consistent. Consistent means what I say today will be the same thing I'll say tomorrow, or my promises for today will be the same promises for tomorrow. Then there's the level of transparency. I speak or I communicate in such a manner that I'm not hiding information or harboring information, and then in a respectful manner. So communication is made up of all these things, yet they almost narrow down to trust. So you need to structure your communication in a manner that you're consistent, you're transparent, and also you're respectful, so that even the people who are receiving this communication are able to bank on it or to rely on it. And then another big benefit for effective communication is reducing conflicts by minimizing misunderstandings. So remember, whenever we have to communicate, especially if there's consistency, there's transparency, then we reduce the risk of misunderstanding. All right. So whenever you're communicating, try to especially remain consistent with what you're trying to communicate, because that way the person receiving this information will only receive it as a singular kind of information, and if need be, if you need to add more information, then it is additional information to already what you had already set in pipeline for. So these are some of the things or some of the benefits for effective communication. So what are the best practices? Best practices means what is the strategy to achieve this effective communication. So one big strategy is proactive communication. Proactive communication means you need to see even ahead before a crisis arises, before an incident arises. You're able to see it and communicate about it. Say, for example, this morning, assume where I am, the office, the power goes off. So instead of waiting until 11 a.m., and also assuming my laptop does not have power, instead of assuming or waiting until 11 a.m. so that I can communicate either the webinar is going to be postponed or we'll need 5 more minutes before we start, so that one is not being proactive, that is reactive communication. You are reacting to the circumstances that are happening. But proactive, it's in such a manner you're able to even anticipate problems, you're able to anticipate issues that might arise and communicate and jump before them. And then the role of feedback in communication, and I know we'll talk at depth around about feedback at some point as we continue, is communication is two-way. So assume in the morning I come, I say, hi guys, by default, I will expect you will also tell me hi back. All right. Then I'm like, I'm preparing for this webinar at 11 a.m. So someone else from our team, like this morning, you are discussing, you're asking how many people have signed up. Then I'm told 50 people have signed up. So you see, that is feedback. So the best way to achieve effective communication is also, as you communicate, you also give feedback. And also, feedback needs to be in real time. You don't need to give feedback after 3 days, after 5 days. Yet, I needed it Wednesday in the morning at 11 a.m., as an example. And then tailoring communication to your audience. This one I'll also take a deep dive of it as we proceed. So remember, even with the quote that we started with when we were starting, that our audience is different. The people we communicate to, their personalities are different. Our own personalities are different. So what do I need to do to take care of that? All right. Because when you are communicating, I need to easily adjust depending on who I'm also communicating to. So, for example, if I'm talking to my manager, I need to be very particular what I'm talking about, go straight to the point, because you see, executives are busy in their nature, so they may not really dwell into the stories. Yet, if I'm engaging my team members, I may need to give them as many details as possible on what the expectation or the goal for this communication is all about. So those are the benefits and also the best practices. So we'll keep taking a deep dive as we proceed on this webinar. So, what is this communication you're talking about? We've introduced the effectiveness of the communication, but what is exactly communication? Because I know so many of us are busy or saying, no, but I communicate. I think they do not understand me. So you see, these are things that are coming out of your communication. Either it's the communication style or the message. So communication is not just exchanging words. And today, I think we are working in a very different world. The fact that almost say 80% of our communication has been moved to a digital kind of information. So either you're talking on WhatsApp, you're sending messages on WhatsApp, on social, on emails. So we have almost eliminated that person or in person, I'm a face to face kind of communication. So, but as and when we need to have this communication, what are some of the things that you need to take care of? All right. So the first one is the intended message. So the intended message, there are so many methods around. Uh, in the industry. There's the five W's and H. I don't know if you've heard about it. The five W's and H is what, when, where, how. Sorry, not how. Uh, what, when, where, who, which. Those are five W's. And then the H is how. So maybe if you're not too sure the communication you want to send out, maybe you can try and figure out, what am I talking about? Who am I talking to? Why am I talking to them? Why am I sending out this message? To whom is it intended for? And what is the purpose? So you see, if you go through the five W's and H and how as well, then you're able to correctly get that message out. So as you've tried to focus on the intended message, you need to ask yourself, if I send this message out the way it is, will it be understood by the party that I'm sending this message to? And then have you put an action? So for us in our world, I know we call it call to action. So if, for example, I say, hi guys, we are having this webinar on 22nd of January at 11 a.m. We'll be handling the topic of effective communication skills, and I stop there. So if I stop that communication there, I've not done the action part. All right. So the action part, I believe all of us came across our different messaging we've been floating around. The action was sign up for this class. So that is the action. Because if it was just communication, it will have stopped at, we are doing this webinar on the 22nd. But the fact that we needed an audience for this webinar, that's why we put an action and say, sign up for this class. And then figure out, is it going to serve a specific purpose? Because communication are not just words, empty words, bare words. It needs to have a specific purpose that is supposed to address. So let's see how. Yes. What are some of the key elements to effective communication? So remember, we already done the benefits. We've already done what you need to consider. But now, what is these key elements? What does your effective communication have to have? Number one is clarity. Clarity is avoid ambiguity. Avoid using too many stories, avoid uh, having your train of thought all over the place. So the best is to be as clear as possible. At some point, I'll also talk about being taking either the shortest time or the least words possible to communicate. So because I feel like the more you add so many words on your it's if it's an email, if you put too many words, then it now leads to your communication lacks clarity. So brevity is making it short. As and when you can, always make your communication very short and also straight to the point. Try to use either bullet points to highlight the key issues and areas. You can use bold, you can underline. That makes sure, even if I have a few seconds to go through your email, I'm able to pick exactly what you want me to address. Then the other one is purpose. Make sure that your communication one has a very clear goal, and the purpose can be easily seen. All right. So if, for example, like I'll still give this example of this webinar. So our purpose was to get a sign up. So every communication that we were sending out had a call to action and say, you guys, I need you to sign up for this webinar. It's coming up. We also have other webinars coming up. So you see, our purpose was very clear because for us as a HR consulting company, we work around people, employees. So these are also some of the things and challenges we are facing in our line of work that we'll also want to give information out, so that also where we are employed, our employers can easily manage with us. All right. Then there's the issue of active listening. Active listening, and I think the challenge that we are having is the one that I had mentioned earlier. A big percentage of our communication has gone to non-person kind of communication. So we are talking on text, we're talking on WhatsApp, we're talking on emails. So this part of active listening, I think over time, it has gone redundant in some sort. So there's how do we show that we are actively listening to someone? Either by showing engagement, eye contact, you're leaning forward, you're nodding your head. That is some of the ways that you show someone that you're actually listening to them. Others is paraphrasing, especially for in-person kind of conversations. When I say something and you've taken note of it, you say, "Ah, you mean to say," or "I'd like more clarification on this matter." So that is paraphrasing and also avoiding interruption. I think now interruption, like the world is so busy and noisy. So almost all the time there's something to disrupt us or to interrupt. So by active listening, you need to avoid the interruption. And then feedback loop. I had already talked about feedback at some point. Communication is only complete if you get feedback out of it. And thanks to technology today, giving feedback does not necessarily need you to write a whole paragraph. An emoji serves as feedback, a smiley face serves as a feedback. So I know whenever we do this corporate training, someone asks, if someone sends me an email, must I reply back? I think it is important to reply back to that email, even if it's saying noted, well received, because now it shows the person who sent out that information that the communication has reached home. All right. So, and if I receive feedback from an email, then that makes that communication cycle complete. So these are they're small things, but they're big things when we look at communication from an effectiveness point of view. Then we quickly move to building collaborative communication. Tell me if you need me to stop or take a break, or you need to catch up. If I'm too fast, also please let me know. But I think this is a good pace we are going. But I'm happy to stop as and where is required. I see a bit of communication also happening. By Eunice strengthens personal and professional relationship by fostering open dialogue and mutual understanding. I think that's an example I had requested earlier. Increases clarity of roles, promotes employee engagement, that is by Mercy and Thomas, builds confidence, reduce conflict. Uh, all right, and then removes ambiguity in communication. So I think those are some of the benefits that we look up to for communication. So moving on swiftly to building collaborative communication. What I think is we cannot communicate alone. Either we communicate to our teams. If you're a manager, you communicate to both your teams and maybe the owner of the business or the CEO, the MD. If you're at a low level, you need to now communicate with your team members and also communicate with your manager upwards. So communication cannot happen in a silo. Communication has to happen within teams or between two or more people. So when we introduce two or more people in this conversation, then communication has to be collaborative. Collaborative means we have to pull strings together to make this communication happen. So I think the most important point to consider is collaboration is at the center of communication. So, depending on how good you are at collaboration or collaborating with others, it will also determine how strong of a communicator you are or you become, right? So if you need to pull all these techniques, you need to pull in all these efforts to make sure that not only that you communicate to others, but also you effectively communicate to them. So I'll show you how to build this collaborative communication, because in teams we need some sort of alignment, we need productivity, we need innovation, and then you need, then how do you get all this out of the people that you're communicating to and also with? All right. So techniques of building collaboration. So number one is encourage open ended questions during discussions. Open ended questions mean questions that you do not necessarily get a definite answer. So, for example, if I ask you, are you planning to come for the webinar? There are only two answers to it, or maybe three. It's either yes, no, or maybe. So you see, that's a close-ended kind of question. But imagine if I ask you a question like, what do you think about the webinar Accurex are planning to host? So you see that one, I can receive any kind of feedback depending on who I have asked. So someone will say, hey, I think that is very interesting. I'll be excited just to see what they are doing. Also get to understand different, meet the trainers and all that. So you see, that's an open-ended kind of question. So when you're communicating, try to avoid the yes, no kind of answer, questions that will get such answers, because also you're trying to stimulate a conversation or a dialogue happening. So you see, that one will only happen if you ask very open ended questions. The other one is foster inclusivity by engaging quieter team members. Because of how different we are, especially in terms of our personalities, sometimes or some people need to be given that opportunity to speak. So, for example, in a setup, I think I'm among the talkative people, but someone else in that same setup will not be the most talkative. All right. So it would be nice if we talk and find out one person is not contributing. It's good just to point them out. Like, hi, I think let's hear from Pauline now. Let's hear what she has to say. Let's hear from Martin now. Let's hear what she has to say. He has to say. So you see, you're giving these other team members an opportunity to contribute, because some people, if you don't give them an opportunity, they will never speak. So I think those are some of the things that you need to consider, so that to also promote collaboration. And also maybe some people do not excel in very big groups, so maybe try to put them into even smaller groups, just to see if their voice can now come out from the small groups. And then encourage everyone to, that I know we keep saying an idea is not wrong. All right. So just tell people, I think let's receive all ideas, brainstorm around them and all that. So how do we adapt to diverse communication styles? So remember, and I think I keep going back to our personalities are so different. So because our personalities are different, they also influence how we communicate. So you see, like the D personalities, the dominant ones, they could be so loud, they could be so direct, they could be very cut, like in terms of their communication. They're direct, they do not give too much into people's feelings. So you see that because of that personality, it has by default almost predetermined what their communication style is. So and another personality, like the S personalities, those ones are more laid back, they are cool. So they're more maybe polite, they're more cautious on how they talk. So you see that personality has also almost predefined how they communicate. So, but when you're building this collaborative communication, you also need to be cautious about the communication style you apply. So, for example, like the example I've given you for the D personalities and the S personalities, these are so different in their nature, such that if a D and an S are going to interact, it means the D needs to give the S an opportunity to speak. An S will need to be more assertive so that the personality can hear what she's saying. So that's the dynamic around communication styles. So I had listed a few. So the analytical communicators. So these are logical kind of communicators. They're data driven. They're detail oriented. So this one is almost like a D personality. So these ones, you talk to them with facts, with data. You need to avoid too many stories in that kind of conversation. You don't involve emotions around it. So you just go straight to the point, put your argument forward, and as quickly as you can. Then we have the emotional communicators. These are the I personalities. The I personalities, they're the people who you go to the office before even you say what had taken you to that office. They ask you about your children, they ask you about your dog, they ask you so many things. Then you're wondering, what brought me to this office? So these are the emotional communicators. So they build more on empathy, they're very emotional, they're very relational in their nature. So they value about the relationships they have. They're the best people to collaborate with in different assignments around the workplace. So how do you communicate with this? Number one is show genuine interest in them and care. So if they are talking about their dog, you need to give that dog 100% care, or pay enough attention to that. And then build your communication more around relationship or on people. So when you communicate, you're like, why are we doing this? So you'll be saying, we're doing this because it will impact the team. The team needs morale. So those are some of the things that will trigger them other than numbers. So if you come to talk about numbers to this kind of person, quickly he will get lost, because that is not what triggers him or her in a communication setup. Then there are the assertive communicators. So assertive communicators, they're very goal oriented, they're results driven, they're direct. So with this ones, to communicate by focusing on clear goals, timelines, and deliverables. So these ones will ideally become better managers because they'll keep at it. If it's the KPIs, they know what is the KPI, they know the timeline for the KPIs and all that. And then be consistent. So that one means keep your words very minimal because you might also lose them in the process if you put too many details in that kind of conversation, right? So, so tell me, what are some of the areas that you think conflict will arise because of communication? So that's an open question. What are some of the areas that conflict will arise because of communication? Or what will cause conflict at the workplace brought about by communication? Judy, your hand is up. Good morning. Yes. Mhm. Please continue, Judy. Mm. All right. Awesome. Thank you for that. I think Dovi, your hand is up. Yeah, for sure. Let's hear more thoughts. I see Esther saying using of jargons or initials. I saw another thread on TikTok that this manager was talking about EOD. So this employer thought it was end of end of day. Ideally, it's end of day, but this employee thought it was end of December because we're in the month of December. So I think using the initials, and I think also social media is really influencing us that that uh, that so many things have become abbreviations of later. Let's hear more thoughts. What do you think will cause conflict, especially at the workplace? I can get one or two inputs and then we continue. Personality clashes. That one, I think we've really dwelt today on personality. Uh-huh. Nguhi, I think your hand is up. Katie. Yes, on time. Communication has to be right on time. And then I think Kibaya, your hand is up. Yes, exactly. Yes, power struggles. There's the one who has the official title, and the other one does not have any official title, but they behave like they're the boss around. All right, let's see what is all this, because now we've seen where the conflicts are, or what the conflicts ideally are, but how do we resolve it through communication? Remember, we cannot solve conflicts by keeping quiet or hiding in our offices or hiding in the boardrooms. We must be able to communicate through these conflicts. So, how do we resolve it? So, I think the number one point to consider: conflicts are inevitable. A whole year will not go by if we've not conflicted with anyone. So the moment that you know or you're aware that conflicts are inevitable, someone is bound to feel bad, you said something, someone is bound to misquote you, someone is bound to not, either they did not receive the information, like we are talking on time. So the moment you realize that, then it becomes so easy for you to know that these conflicts are inevitable. And the best way, once a conflict is arises, is to be able to work through it to a point of harmony, right? Because remember, harmony is like, we are not assuming the conflict is there. We know the conflict is there, but as we work through the conflict, what are we doing about it? Because either way, work has to continue. I have to talk to you. If I'm your boss or your manager, I still need to give instructions. You still need to pick these instructions and follow through with them and all that. And then the other one is to remember relationships are important, especially when resolving conflict. We must walk through the conflict and still remain. If you're colleagues, we still remain colleagues. If you're friends, we still need to remain friends. So the conflict is not the factor that will make us not continue either working together or having a relationship that we already had earlier. Then remember, these conflicts do not wait for us, or work does not wait for conflicts to end so that we can pick from where we last stopped working. So by fostering a productive work environment. So I think with conflict, the fact that you know it is inevitable, ama it is always there, then you need to easily also quickly identify as and when these conflicts are arising and try to also solve them amicably and also in the shortest time possible, right? And also remember some of the things you consider when resolving conflict is respect. Respect has to remain, trust has to still remain, or you need not start rebuilding the trust all over again. So let's see some of the steps we can take to address conflicts as and when they arise. All right. So number one is identify the root cause. So many things could have happened that even maybe you're not really able to pinpoint where exactly the conflict came from. But the best strategy is to try and do a diagnosis of some sort. Figure out what led to this real case scenario. So do the root cause analysis. You could ask some questions. For example, I had written some questions there. What triggered the disagreement? Are there any unmet expectations or misaligned goals? Could there be external factors influencing conflict? Uh, could be stress, could be workload, could be family matters. Because imagine an employee comes to work and maybe their child is sick. As much as you try to put so much pressure on them, at one point they might burst. So you see, those are now becoming external factors that are leading to this conflict. So you need to do a root cause analysis. There's a method you can use. It's called why method. So the why method is you ask why until you get the final answer. So for example, an example is assume you have this employee, let's call her Stella. She's not performing well at work. Assume she's a salesperson. So say this their KPI is 1 million per month. All right. So month one, say she sells 800,000. Month two, it drops down to say 600,000. Month three, it drops down to 500,000. So you see, the performance is gradually going down. So you need to figure out what is. So now the manager and the employee are busy conflicting because I need you to perform. I can't see the performance. Then you ask the first why. Stella, why are you not performing? So they'll tell you, oh, the market is very hard. Uh, our buyers, our customers are not buying as much. Then you ask the second why. Why our prices, they're saying compared to our competitors, our prices are a bit high. So that's why they're going with the competitors and not us. You go to the third why. Why our prices high? So maybe our prices are high because our cost of production is high. Then you ask another why. Why is our cost of production high? It's where we buy the raw materials that are getting it at a high price. So you see, the cause of this conflict was Stella not performing. But what was the real cause of Stella not performing? The real cause ended up being that the market price for the raw materials are very high. So it's affecting their cost of production, it's affecting their selling price, which in turn now affects Stella from being not being able to perform. So that is the YY method. You can use it. You can try it and figure out if it is working or not. The other one is approach the issue early. Do not wait for conflicts to simmer, or do not wait for conflicts to boil, until by the time you're coming to try and resolve this conflict, people are busy bursting out either the emotions. So as and when you feel or you think there's a conflict, you need to take the proactive approach. I think I talked about proactive when we were starting. So this one you need to just approach it heads on. Ask, I think there's a problem here. How can we sort it out? Could be by setting up a private meeting. Always remain calm, avoid reactive language. Reactive is either you're trying to blame this person, or the person you're talking to, they receive it as you're blaming them. So you need to avoid that. Set a neutral tone. Neutral tone is to mean, uh, hi, hi Martin, I'm calling you to this meeting. I think a few things are not going okay. So I'm trying to find out where the real issue is. So you're not quick to point out one, what the issue is, or who is the problem in this whole issue. Then the other one is use I statements. So I statements, they make you own that conversation, they make you own that conflict. Other than saying you never showed up for the meeting, you did not meet your target. So especially now we are trying to resolve a conflict, you need now to look inward. So I, other than saying you or I thought they did not do this, so that looks like you're also blaming that person. So the best is to use the I statements. So I had summarized this in a flow chart of some sort. So steps to conflict resolutions. So identify the issue, initiate a discussion, encourage an open dialogue, acknowledge emotions, collaborate on a solution, and then follow up. So once you agreed on a solution, do not be quick to fold your hands and let it go. Always make sure you come back for a follow up. So empathy and assertiveness in conflict resolution. Empathy is putting yourself in the other person's shoes. So if I come and tell you something, you ask yourself, if I was in that same position, how would I want to be treated? And then assertiveness is standing for yourself, all right? Or how would I say it? Assertiveness is making sure you're heard, and not only heard but also understood. So by you expressing your needs, by saying your boundaries, maybe a conversation is not going very well, you can say, respectfully, I'll not want you to talk to me like that. I'll prefer we remain professional, or let's talk in 5 minutes after your emotions have calmed down. So that is being assertive. So you're firm, yet in a very respectful way. So those are some of the things you need to consider when you're resolving conflict: empathy and assertiveness. So quickly, the power of nonverbal communication. Nonverbal communication is what we don't say with our mouths, but we are saying it in our body language, we are saying it in our facial expression, we are saying it in the tone of our voice. So all these are nonverbal language. You don't have to say anything, but your face is busy telling us what you're not telling us with your mouth. Your body is also telling us that. So what do we need, or why is this body language important? So what are some of these body language you need to consider when you're having a conversation with anyone, especially whether in person or also online? The fact that I don't see all of you, I know you're giving me some body language of some sort wherever you are. So number one is open posture. That makes you look approachable. If you cross your hands, they make you look defensive. You need to maintain eye contact at all times so that that person will know that you're following through. You need to avoid fidgeting. Fidgeting is you keep moving, you keep moving, you keep moving. It makes someone might think you are anxious or impatient with them. By leaning forward, you look like you're interested in whatever they're saying. So for your tone and your facial expression, you need to always keep calm at all times. Also, make sure you're not too loud. Some of us have very loud voices, but with our tone, someone might think you're commanding them, yet that's the way you talk. So you need to bring your especially your tonation of your voice down a bit. Smile genuinely, give the proper facial expression. If you're excited, show excitement. If I know some of us, you raise your eyebrow like, what do you mean? So that's a facial expression. Then you need to do the voice modulation. When it's appropriate to speak loud, you do that. When you need a lower house voice, then you do that. Then you need to align both your verbal and non-verbal. What I'm saying with my mouth needs to quickly align with what my body is also saying, or my face is saying. So for like virtual meetings like this one, I know I saw a few people had their cameras on, but those who had their cameras on, we need to maintain an eye contact. You need to keep gestures visible. I believe that one you're seeing. Monitor the background distractions. Like where I'm seated, there's no distraction. There's no TV going on at my back that is going to distract you guys. So those are some of the things we consider with nonverbal. So quick. How much eye contact is necessary to avoid to making it awkward? I think that's a question. Let me keep it for the Q&A part, and then I'll come back and answer that. And then mastering feedback. Remember we said communication is not complete if you've not given feedback, whether positive or negative or constructive. You need to give feedback, right? So this feedback, and it could go either way. One day you're giving feedback, the other day you're receiving feedback. So you need to be in a position to be able to give and also receive. So, because now performance is dependent also on feedback. Creating a culture of continuous development is based on feedback. These relationships have to be built on feedback. So feedback is pretty much the essence of our communication, and we must be willing to give it genuinely as and when it comes. All right. So when we are delivering feedback, that is now giving feedback, we need to be specific. Use a positive reinforcement. A positive reinforcement is, I see the potential of growth here. I see you're able to perform better. Let me see how I can help you. So you see, that is positive reinforcement. And also focus on the behavior, not the person. It is wrong to say purity is always coming late, all right? Because now you're blaming this, or you're giving this feedback based on purity and not my lateness. So you could rephrase it and say, in this organization, we do not tolerate lateness, or we do not appreciate lateness. We like everyone to be coming early. So now you're focusing on the behavior and not the person. So when it is your turn to receive this feedback, I know sometimes that is where the problem is. We are very quick to give feedback, but you're not very quick, or you're not very open to receive feedback. So number one, when you're receiving feedback, avoid defensiveness. Because the moment you think you're getting feedback, I think naturally we start moving towards defending yourself, like saying, I did not think that, that is not what I meant, that is not what I was saying. So now that one, you're now acting defensive. So ways to avoid defensiveness: take a deep breath, count one up to five before you talk. You know, that one gives you time to even think what you're going to say. Then ask clarifying questions. Did you mean to say this, or this is what you meant? Know that. And then reflect and take action. Because feedback, when you're given, it means there's a call to action. Either you need to improve on a behavior, there's something that needs, or an effort that needs to come from you. So, what are some of these communication barriers? Sorry, I'm really rushing because also of the time. I don't want to keep you beyond 12 p.m. So, at our workplace, we get all these communication barriers. Some could be cultural driven. The fact that all of us come from so many different places. There's the remote work dynamic. Today, more people are working from home, so there's the issue of that. Some people are in the office, some people are at home. So where do we meet? So then there's the misinterpretation. Then so overcoming this, we need to be proactive. Proactive, we say you jump before the gun. All right. Empathy, you put yourself in these other people's shoes. And then adaptability. Adaptability is as and when a barrier comes, you adjust yourself, you become agile. All right. So these ones, for example, especially for culture and language, you use a common language. In the office, English will do, Kiswahili will do. Be mindful of the nonverbal cues. We talked about the nonverbal part. Encourage questions for clarity, or the open-ended questions. And then with remote and hybrid work, leverage on these different tools, be it Gmeet, MS Teams. Try to see how you are able to meet all these people. Utilize emails as soon as often as possible. Take care of time zones. Today, more people are working in a global perspective. So you're working here, your colleagues are in the US, your colleagues are in the UK. There's a huge time difference. So setting up a meeting at 8 in Kenya, it means someone at 4 a.m. has to wake up and attend that meeting. So you need to quickly consider that. And then miscommunication, make sure you also reduce instances for miscommunication. If a mistake happens, you acknowledge it as soon as you can, clarify on messages, and also encourage feedback. Feedback is not bad. So as and when you can take advantage of it, you ask for feedback. Whether it's positive or constructive, you just receive the feedback and start working around it. So, what are the benefits? This is my last point. So, and then we'll take a few questions before we call it a morning. So, I'm happy to, if you have any questions, just put them there. I'll answer them in a few. So after we've done all this, we've resolved conflict, we've collaborated, we've worked on our non-verbal cues, all of this. What is the benefit? Because all of this work you are doing with a purpose in mind or an end goal in mind. So some of these or the benefits we anticipate is one, build stronger workplace relationships. I think that is the most important. Building a strong relationship. We spend almost 90% of our awake time. Awake time means the time that you're not sleeping. So assume you wake up at 5, by 7 o'clock you're in the office, you'll push it until 5 p.m. That is 80% of your awake time. So that is too much time to be in a place that you don't have a relationship of some sort. So the better you become as a communicator, the better relationships or stronger relationship you're bound to have. Then you're able to collaborate and build a culture of trust in your organization. So teams are more open, teams are more transparent, people are willing to give ideas, to share ideas, to work on your ideas. So those are some of the benefits you get from that. Then you resolve conflicts diplomatically and confidently. So the fact that you know that conflicts are inevitable. So as and when they come up, hata zikushtu, you're not worried about them because you're like, this is one other conflict that will need to resolve and work through it. Then adapt communication to different personalities and situations. And let me tell you, with communication, the more you practice, the better you become at it. So if today you talk to Purity and you figure out, I was not really happy with that how conversation went, tomorrow you'll try another, sorry, tomorrow you'll try another approach and see how that will work. Eventually, by the time you communicate to me, the fifth time, you've already figured out Purity likes to be communicated like this. So I'll end here with a quote that says by Liz Brown, your ability to communicate is an important tool in your pursuit of your goals, whether it is with your family, your coworkers, or your clients and customers. So you need to work on this tool that is called communication. I'd like to stop there for this morning. I'm happy to take any questions if there is. I think I'll answer the question. How much eye contact is necessary to avoid making it awkward? Eye contact is very different from staring. All right. So eye contact is like a second or a millisecond. You look, your eyes go elsewhere. You look again, your eyes goes elsewhere. But the moment you do like this, that is staring. So as and often you just look for a glance. You look away. You look away. That is eye contact. So I think there was another comment by Joanne, not being alignment to the objectives and expected goals, not being alignment. All right, I think that is where we were talking about conflicts, how and when conflicts arise. So I think that is it. Let me get other questions if there is. If there is none, we have another webinar coming up next week on Wednesday on the topic of emotional intelligence and self-awareness. So make sure you sign up for this webinar coming up right next week, the same time at 11 up to midday. Uh, a few people are asking about the notes. Yes, we will share the notes. Make sure I believe you gave us your email addresses. If not, make sure you give us the email addresses again. There's a feedback form on a feedback and certificate request form. If you need a certificate, please fill that form. We'll pick the correct names of your certificate. So the certificates will only be issued one time. So if you don't give us the correct name, we are not able to redo the certificate. So make sure you give us the correct name to be put on your certificate. I think that is it. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Engage us on our social media platforms. Check out other opportunities we have for training. Not only these webinars, we also do physical training. So just check us out what we are doing on different platforms. Until next time on Wednesday, have a very good afternoon. Thank you. Thank you.